Hello everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another movie review covering some of my most favourite movies ever, and in this edition we will focus on the magnificent sweeping epic The Last Samurai. Released on December the 5th, 2003, this stars Tom Cruise, Ken Watanbe, Billy Connolly, Tony Goldwyn, Timothy Small, Hiroki Sanada, and was directed by Edward Zwick. The story here is that we are based in the early 19th century, and we follow the story of Regiment Captain Nathan Algren, who we see at the beginning of the film is fallen from grace. He's an alcoholic and he's wasting away performing exhibition shows outlining what happened previously during wars. We also see that he's still very haunted with memories of his actions from his previous missions. He suddenly, out of the blue, gets a career lifeline when he's offered to train a Japanese army of soldiers who want to combat a rebellion of samurai warriors who are opposed against the reign of the recently appointed new emperor. Algren notes that the army is not ready for the fight, but is still ordered to take on the samurai regardless. During the encounter, Algren's army find themselves completely overwhelmed by the samurai, with only Algren surviving the battle. The samurai leader, Katsumoto, takes Algren captive, hoping to gain more information on the enemy. And it's through this period of captivity that Algren all of a sudden comes to understand the true nature of the samurai, the beauty of their culture, the nobility of the people, and all the history of their traditions. Algren over time strikes a bond with Katsumoto and the other samurai, eventually becoming their friend and companion, and finally joins them in the fight against the Japanese army. Now for me, The Last Samurai is truly a beautiful, magnificent and at many times majestic period epic. I've always been a massive fan of historical epics and also Japanese and samurai movies, and Last Samurai wonderfully encapsulates both of these genres together. It truly is such a masterful, composed and produced movie. Everything from the story to the cinematography, the music, the battle sequences, all of these elements are produced and done on a truly exceptional level. As well as achieving heights of vivid intensity and emotion and spectacle, there are also many elements of sincerity, cultural interactions, political status, revolution, conflict and establishment, and the film handles all of these themes superbly. This type of epic movie is really what we've come to expect from director Edward Zwick, who has consistently been able to produce these very powerful epics that have both a purpose and a message, along with making them very accessible and populist entertainment. His impressive resume of movies includes the likes of Glory, which was about the first black regiment within the Civil War, Blood Diamond, which was about the conflicts within Sierra Leone, Defiance, which was about a strive for survival amidst the Nazi occupation by Germany as well. And all of these films are superb, and I would highly recommend that you watch all of them. They truly are an impressive collection of films that Edward Zwick has managed to assemble throughout his career. We talk about the cast and the performances now, and in the lead role as Algren, Tom Cruise once more consolidates his position not only as the blue chip movie star within the industry, but also as a compelling lead actor. He's completely convincing as Algren, conveying all of the vulnerabilities, torment and integrity, as we truly empathise with his predicament as he struggles to cope with his inner demons and memories, and we root for him throughout the story as he builds connections with the samurai and comes to learn and understand what they truly mean as a people. And I think Tom Cruise is consistent throughout this performance. He's very much of a wounded character, and we get to see him analyse both sides of the argument and overall build these connections with these people, and I think that's what makes him such a special performance throughout this movie. And when we look at Tom Cruise at this stage, this was really the peak stage throughout his career, not only commercially but also I think artistically, where he was able to enjoy massive success primarily on more standalone movies. So of course, if we look at the most recent period during this time around The Last Samurai, we of course had big massive hits such as Jerry Maguire, Vanilla Sky, Minority Report, and shortly after Last Samurai he would go on to continue with the likes of Collateral and War of the World. So at this stage he was probably, alongside Tom Hanks, the biggest prolific actor within the industry, and I think it was because he was primarily be able to produce such strong and consistent performances and really convince us as an audience that he could carry almost any film within any genre, and I think he proves that again with his performance here as Algren. every bit his equal within this movie is Ken Watanbe as Katsumoto. Watanbe is simply superb in this movie, bringing all of the gravitas, the statesmanship, and he also has the charisma. We like Katsumoto straight away when we see all of his quotes, and he's very much more of a wise, very measured character, and I think that's always something you can appeal to when you have somebody who is supposedly the leader of a savage people, but when we come to meet him, that's not the case. He clearly has a strong and passionate desire to maintain the old history and traditions of his people, and we see this throughout the movie where multiple times he comes into conversations with the new emperor, who himself has much of a respect for Katsumoto and what he means and his standing, and that's great throughout. And I think Watanbe is amazing in this role. The dynamic that he has through Algren in this movie is absolutely crucial in understanding both characters' motivations, and I think we see their relationship develop so well throughout this movie. There's initial antagonism. Algren wants to understand what he's doing here, why are they treating him so well, he's supposed to be their capture, and we learn that great throughout the story, and I think it's fantastic. And I think Watanbe manages this so well. He commands your attention with authority, and it's such a huge and I think world-class performance, and he was fully deserving of the Oscar nomination that he gained for Best Supporting Actor for this movie. All of the other cast members perform very well within their roles despite having less screen time. I do like Hiroki Sanada's warrior. He's a very silent warrior at the time, and of course when he first comes against Algren, he initially has an antagonism against him, which I fully understand, but over time as he trains him, he overall gains his respect overall. Billy Connolly and Timothy Spall as well, they both have very good standout roles throughout this movie as well, so all of the cast perform very competently, as well as the two lead actors. The second most significant aspect of this movie, without question, is Hans Zimmer's masterful musical score. It is simply an incredible soundtrack that really helps to elevate this film so much. Yes, it has those typical thunderous choruses that we become so familiar with Hans Zimmer's music over the last, I'd say, 10 to 15 years. You have those typical euphoric sounds and tones that are so distinctive of his work, but there are also far more subtle emotional tones throughout this movie, and this is really what adds a lot to the pathos and the emotions as we see the forming of bonds and relationships throughout these characters so much. I particularly love the sequences where we see Algren for the first time trying to connect with the wife and the family of a previous samurai that he had defeated in battle, and also where we see the training of the samurai and the overall montages that we get, particularly halfway through the movie where we show the warriors preparing for battle. There is such a thunderous and really immersive musical score and experience, and it really adds overall to the viewing experience of this movie. I think it's an incredible musical score, and I would definitely put it amongst really the top 5 of Hans Zimmer's best musical scores ever, and that is saying something considering the body of work that he has consolidated over in movies, and it's probably worth a separate debate which I may produce as well later on within this channel. The only real criticism I suppose that you could throw towards The Last Samurai is that perhaps it's maybe much more of a typical Hollywood story. Many people have criticised that maybe it's that familiar narrative that we see of a white savior, essentially where we have a certain ethnic culture that is enduring a civil war, and then we have the typical white man coming from the outside, joining in the battle and managing to be the pivotal factor in resolving the conflict. So yes, if you wanted to throw that criticism, yes, there are those more typical storytelling beats that we see. The one issue I've always had with the film, and it probably is the only issue, is that Algren is treated far better with more respect in his captivity than what he was when he was on the outside world in America. If we think about it, he's taken in and he gets to live in a nice house, he gets to strike a relationship with the wife of the samurai that he defeated in battle, as well as her siblings. He gets to really take a look at all of the culture and its splendid beauty and its environments, and he also gets trained to fight as a samurai. So really, he couldn't have had it better. He's probably thinking that he could have been captured a lot sooner, and that's the one real issue I take. I think it just affects the credibility of the story a little bit. Now, of course, Last Samurai has been massively compared to Dances with Wolves, which is completely understandable if you Watch that movie, directed by Kevin Costner, which was a massive blockbuster Oscar-winning success when it was released in 1990. And again, we are dealing with that same similar narrative of the white outsider coming into the cultural, ethnic environment. But I think, although that Last Samurai I feel is a superior movie to Dances with Wolves, Dances with Wolves did handle it better in terms of having the outsider integrate with the cultural people through small gestures first, and then it built that story over time. And that's the one flaw I think that you could have within Last Samurai. It just is a bit unlikely that Algren would be welcomed with such politeness and sincerity, given the fact that previously he was fighting against them. So that was only the one real query that I had throughout The Last Samurai, but despite that, I still think it's a magnificent film overall. So if I had to give a score for The Last Samurai, I would give it a 9.4 out of 10. Magnificent, beautiful, epic, outstanding for me, and it's nearly everything you want and could ask for in terms of a historical epic. So when we look at the release of Last Samurai, overall it was a massive box office success in 2003. From a budget of 140 million, it managed to gross 456.8 million at the box office. And as I mentioned before, I think the major reasons for this is that it really was in line with the huge, massive superstar status of Tom Cruise at the time following his succession of hits through the 90s and the early 2000s. The film was also a big, massive hit in Japan, where Cruise is very much of a popular celebrity within that country as well. So all of these things I think built as well to why The Last Samurai was such a huge success. Now, of course, it was well released in December because it was a massive push, I think, to try and get Tom Cruise for that Oscar nomination. I still think overall his best performance of his career is as the Vietnam veteran Ron Kovic in Born on the 4th of July, but his performance as Algren is certainly up there in terms of his best performances throughout his career, and I think this is something that was recognised a lot within audiences alike. And I think during this time as well, Hollywood had experienced a big revival in terms of the historical epics. Of course, this is fueled first and mostly with Gladiator in 2000, starring Russell Crowe and directed by Ridley Scott. And later on, we would see shortly after this, Troy, starring Brad Pitt and Orlando Bloom and Eric Bana, and later on with the likes of Kingdom of Heaven as well. So this was really a booming period in terms of the historical epic, and I think that's another reason why Last Samurai benefited so much at the movie. So again, just a magnificent film, just so beautiful, so poetic, so great in its composure and the way that it's pulled together overall, and I would highly recommend Last Samurai. It's one of the movies that you truly must watch, and I think overall you will find it a truly emotional and immersive historical epic. So those are my thoughts and feelings on The Last Samurai. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have seen a movie, let me know what your thoughts are about it. Do you think it was one of the best movies of Tom Cruise's career? How do you think it compares to the other movies that I mentioned before, which were directed by Edward Zwick? You can check out other movie reviews such as this within my channel as well. Please also hit those like and subscribe and notification buttons so I can provide you with more movies like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves on a truly magnificent and beautiful historical epic in The Last Samurai. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.